The judge said that the decision was made and gaveled. That day, I adopted my boyfriend, Joe. We both had to stop ourselves from laughing. He really didn't have a mom. She died 2 years ago in some sort of bathroom accident. We went out on the street and Joe happily announced that I was now his mom, and we burst out laughing. Since childhood, I adopted risk and dangerous challenges. It was boring to live without it. I tried to find an extreme sports fan like me, but Joe was so crazy that sometimes it was scary. But I definitely wasn't bored with him. Therefore, our relationship quickly turned into a plain chicken. You know, we did everything. I once even walked without a safety net on the wire between the skyscrapers. And he, for example, could eat a live frog. Now, Joe asked me to adopt him as a dare. If I got through a month and was a good mom, I could give Joe the next task. But if one of us refused the challenge, they would have to walk naked all over the city, and I really didn't want that. After the adoption challenge, we went to a coffee shop to celebrate, and Joe offered to live together since I was his new mom now. I agreed. At first, we hung out all the time and I loved it. I had been wanting to move out of my parents' house for a long time, but every day Joe was acting more and more strangely. When I did yoga, he would sit next to me and watch. I was cooking in the kitchen. He was sitting silently at the table. Even when I lingered in the bathroom, he would knock softly on the door and say, "I think it's time for mommy to go out. Joe misses you." Oh no, Joe. You won't be able to get me off balance. I won't fail the challenge. One morning, I was getting ready for work and had just opened the door from my room when I saw Joe sitting in front of it. He was looking at me. I smiled and was about to leave when Joe grabbed my leg and told that mom should stay at home with her son. I didn't know. Joe was such a good actor. I played along, hugged him gently, and said, "Joe, mommy needs to earn you some candy bars." Then he turned away and said viciously that I was acting just like his dead mother. I didn't think it was funny anymore. I ran quickly down the stairs, and I thought I heard Joe crying somewhere behind me. Flying into the office, I ran into my friend Eve. She suggested we go to the bar tonight. Yes, a little relaxation would definitely help. Joe was beginning to bother me. At the bar, even I talked to the bikers. The guys offered to give us a ride. Oh yes, that's what I need. We left the bar. I got on one of the bikes with a big guy, and the race started. We raced through the city, and I felt happy. Not for long though. When I pulled out my cell phone, I saw 35 missed calls from Joe. Damn, what if something happened? I immediately asked the biker to take me home. As I entered the hall, I saw Joe sitting in the dark on the stairs. He slowly stood up and began to approach me. I was scared, and he stared into my eyes and clenched his fist. He hissed that mommy shouldn't be home so late. I answered him with disbelief. "You're out of your mind because of this challenge." But Joe suddenly grabbed my hand and squeezed it so hard that I screamed. I thought he was going to break it. But Joe jerked back and almost burst into tears. He began to apologize for being selfish, and his mother was right to scold him for it. What? I didn't scold anyone. Joe vowed to be better and trudged back to his room, constantly repeating the words, "Mom, sorry." I locked myself in and decided to dial Eve. I felt uneasy and decided to tell her all about Joe's antiques. Eve said it sounded like Joe really had some kind of mental problem. This was no longer a simple challenge. She advised me to leave as soon as possible. Who knows what else he might be capable of? Her words made me uneasy. I used to think Joe was just good at acting, but now I was starting to doubt it. I knocked on Joe's door. Silence. Summoning my resolve, I said that we would need to finish this game. I was terribly worried, and I was waiting for him to tell me that I would have to go naked all over the city. But Joe suddenly opened the door and started hugging me. "Joe, what are you doing?" "Mommy, don't go. Don't leave Joe alone." He continued. Then I put my hand on his shoulder and said softly, "Joe, this is just a game. You're worrying too much." But then Joe stopped talking and pulled away. A sinister smile slowly spread across his face. "Joe, stop it. This isn't funny anymore, okay?" I was about to leave when Joe grabbed my arm and whispered that I was a bad mom. "Let me go." I broke free and ran out of the room, heading for the stairs. I kept looking back at the distraught Joe. He followed me slowly. I was running downstairs, but suddenly I tripped and fell down. My vision went dark. I woke up in my bed. I was wearing a nightgown and Joe was carefully adjusting the blanket. I half froze. But he looked at me intently and put me back down. "I'll take care of Mommy," Joe said slowly. The words sent a shiver down my spine. With a trembling voice, I asked for water. When he left, I frantically searched for my phone. Fortunately, it rang on the nightstand. I saw the number on the screen. It was Eve. But before I could pick up the phone, I heard Joe's voice. Well. He came over, took the cell phone, and threw it at the wall. The impact made me wince. If Joe broke my phone so easily, what could he do to me? Then Joe whispered that Mommy should think about her behavior. Then he went out and the key turned in the lock. Joe locked me up. I immediately ran to the door and started pounding on it with my fists and pulling on the handle, but to no avail. Can I escape through the window? But then I noticed that Joe had taken the handles off the windows. I started to panic, and suddenly I heard the roar of an engine. Eve's car appeared under the windows. She got out of the car and rang the doorbell. This was my chance to escape. I knocked on the window and actively waved my hands. "Come on, Eve, look up." At that moment, Joe came out to Eve, smiling. Eve was worried about why I wasn't picking up the phone, but Joe said in a sweet voice that I wasn't feeling well and I was sleeping. I was banging on the window and I was hoping that Eve would look up after all, but she just shrugged her shoulders and went to the car. I felt doomed. "Help me!" I yelled in hysterics. Suddenly, the door to the room opened. Joe grabbed me by the hair and dragged me to the bed and handcuffed me, saying that his mother was behaving very badly. I screamed and struggled, but Joe just patted my head and told me that soon Mommy would calm down and he would live again as before and always be together. Joe came out and I was still twitching and screaming for help. I wanted to cry. I loved extreme sports, but this was too much. What should I do? Joe was a real nutcase. He didn't play, but then an idea came to me. What if I played along? When Joe came to check on me, I told him I'd figured it out. Mom promises to take care of Joe if he will be obedient and take the handcuffs off. My voice was shaking and my heart was ready to jump out of my chest. Joe thought for a moment, then finally released me and ordered me to feed him. Oh my god, it really worked. We went to the kitchen and I started making him porridge. I looked at Joe and gave him a tight smile. Then I handed him a plate. Joe was very happy, but as soon as he tasted the porridge, he got terribly angry, threw the plate into the wall, and started shouting at me. "You're making porridge with lumps again." I was so scared. "Joe, this is the first time I've made it." But he stared at me and told that Mommy had already made Joe's porridge with lumps. They then had a big fight. His mom fell down and fell asleep in the bathroom forever. What? Fell asleep? Then Joe got up from the table and started walking toward me. Damn, and then I realized Joe had killed his mother. I blurted out that I was going to the bathroom. There I closed the flimsy latch and looked around. Damn it. I had to get out of here. Then I noticed a small window near the ceiling. I tried to open it, but at that moment, the door creaked. Joe was rushing to me, saying in a crazy voice that Mom was too late again. In a fit of hysteria, I tried to smash the window with a mop, but at that moment, Joe burst in and started shouting. He wanted Mommy to play with him. Tears welled up in my eyes. That's it. I'll never get out of here, unless... Then I hugged Joe with trembling arms. Mommy had already made up a game for us. "Joe, you're a brave boy, aren't you?" He nodded thoughtfully. "Prove it to your mom. Take a walk on the ledge of the roof for your mom. Can you?" In horror, I waited for his answer, but he was suddenly happy and agreed. Joe climbed out of the window and onto the ledge, and I watched him. "Come on, Joe. Mommy is proud of you." He looked at me with a smile, and I immediately closed the window and ran downstairs. Without looking back, I hurried to the police station. Tears streamed down my cheeks. The cops listened to me, and we drove back to the house. But when we entered, I was speechless. Joe was covered in bruises and torn clothes. At the sight of the police, he began to cry and pointed at me. "Please don't give me to her." Joe complained that I adopted him just to mock him, and even made him walk on the ledge. I interrupted him and started shouting, "No way! Don't believe him! He wanted to kill me!" I was so hurt. Of course the cops believed Joe. He played so well. They said that I was deprived of the right to custody and took me to the police station. When they let me go, I went to see Eve. I flinched at every sound, afraid that Joe would attack me. But Joe was gone, and he didn't even show up for the trial, where I was fined and given community service. On the last day of my punishment, I returned to Eve with the news that I was moving to another city. I admitted that no matter where I was afraid every day that Joe would attack me down there.
And now I have been living a normal life without adrenaline for 6 months, and I gradually forget those terrible events.
I have a job, an apartment, and even a new boyfriend. I was just on my way to a date when I stopped at a traffic light. Suddenly, I saw Joe across the street. He gave me a friendly wave. I was petrified with horror. I knew that the light would turn green, and he would come to me. But a bus passed him. A second later, there was no one on the opposite street. I ran as fast as I could. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you. My friend Leo appeared in the doorway of the house, followed by the woman from the custody service. She said I would have 3 fathers now. What? Then 2 twins, who looked to be in their 20s, came out to us. Leo introduced them. These were Toby and Mike, his best friends, and they would also be my guardians. Did I get adopted by 3 people? Was that even possible? However, the guys immediately invited me to lunch. I was very hungry, but there was only instant noodles on the table. And I remembered how my mother used to cook. A lump rose in my throat. A couple of months ago, my parents died in a car accident. Everyone was saying that I needed to move on with my life, but how? The children from the orphanage did not accept me. I was withdrawn and shy, and when I thought that nothing good would happen in my life, my old friend Leo wrote to me. I had been running an Instagram page for a long time, and there I pour my heart out in posts. Once he subscribed to me and we began to communicate. Despite the difference of 4 years, it was always very easy with him. He was the only person who understood me, and he was so naive and kind, just like a child. When Leo found out about my tragedy, he urged me to move on with my life and try to go to the medical school I had so longed for. And indeed, it turned out that my parents left me savings to pay for college. But alas, according to the law, only the guardians who would adopt me could get them. Leo cryptically replied that he knew how to help. He had his own house, so he could take over custody. God, Leo, are you serious? And now I was sitting in the kitchen and I couldn't believe that Leo and I had made it. But 3 guardians were too much, of course. But come on, I decided to thank Leo and start by washing the dishes. But Leo decided to help me. Guys don't like washing dishes, do they? He was humming a tune, and I was embarrassed to say that he had a very pleasant voice. Leo smiled. He wanted to record his song for a long time, but his guitar was broken, and he didn't have enough money for the one he dreamed of. It was expensive. Lowering his eyes, he said that they were now on a tight budget, but he added that I would not need anything. Oh, Leo, for me the main thing is that you are near. I fell asleep with a feeling that I was in my place, but in the morning, as soon as I opened my eyes, the twins burst into the room with a phrase that today I would clean the house according to the schedule. This wasn't how I imagined my first day in a new family, but I quickly gathered myself. After all, the guys took me in. I was dusting when I found a bag of balloons under the table. They seemed to know it was my birthday tomorrow. I smiled, but there was a knock on the door. A loader was standing in the doorway with a huge box. New TV? Wow, it could cover half of the wall and had a camera. And Leo said they didn't have much money. The twins fussed and said that they didn't have money. And Mike had won this TV in the lottery. Wow, cool. What a lucky guy. During the cleaning, the day passed unnoticed, and before I went to bed, I was already looking forward to Leo and the guys congratulating me in the morning. However, this did not happen. Confused, I went down to breakfast and heard the twins loudly discussing some party. Wow. So there would also be a surprise party? I pretended not to hear anything. I wanted to go for a walk, but the twins suddenly blocked my path. What happened? Toby handed me the money and a list of groceries. And Mike said I needed to buy them all, and quickly. I was in shock. Did they send me out for groceries on my own birthday? I was so taken aback that I couldn't argue. In the store, it turned out that the most expensive products were on the list. Not everyone could afford them. But I immediately checked myself. The guys were trying for me. Anticipating the fun, I dragged my bag home and opened the door. But there were already a bunch of strangers hanging out in the room. Looked like the twins were going to announce that I was the birthday girl. But Toby just barked that everyone was already hungry, and I could go to my room and let them hang out. Wait, wasn't this a holiday for me? Tears of resentment welled up in my eyes. Had Leo forgotten about me too? I didn't expect that from him. Depressed, I went to my room and suddenly heard my name. I listened. Mike was bragging to his brother Toby. I would have taken someone under guardianship before if I knew how much money it would bring. We'll take all her money and then we'll find a new victim, he said. What? The front door slammed. It was Leo. He immediately came up to me and shyly handed me a box with a large bow. I quickly opened it and could not believe my eyes. There was a microscope. This was the one I needed to get into college. Unable to contain my emotions, I rushed to Leo, and he gently hugged me and goosebumps ran through my body. Leo asked anxiously why I was so sad on my birthday. I hesitated and timidly replied that it looked like the twins were spending the money my parents had left me, but Leo's face changed. And he added that the twins were his best friends. They would never do that. I was so hurt. Why don't you believe me? Then Mike and Toby appeared on the steps. They seemed to have heard everything. Just looking at them made a cold sweat break out on my forehead. I pushed Leo away and ran to my room. Guys stole from me. I had to report it to the police. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. Damn, my hands are shaking. They pounded on my door and soon there was a loud crunch. Toby broke the flimsy latch. He grabbed my phone and shouted that if I wanted to complain about something I would regret. Guests began to flock to my room. It looked like they heard something. Oh, teenage whims. Toby told them sarcastically. He left, and I was still shaking. I couldn't go outside. The twins were just playing video games in the living room. Yes. That's right, the console. The new TV had a camera. If I could record their conversation, it would serve as proof for Leo. For the next half day, I tried to get timing right when the twins wouldn't be watching TV. Then I heard them go into the kitchen to get some chips. I didn't have much time, so I immediately went down to the TV and turned on the camera with trembling hands. I think it worked. All I had to do was sneak back to my room. What are you doing here? Suddenly I heard above me. I was stunned. Twin Mike was standing very close. He continued, "We'd rather you buy us something else with your money instead of just hanging around." So he didn't understand what I was doing here. I glanced at the camera. The light was on and the recording was still going on. The guys were happy and discussed their new life at my expense. I felt elated. Soon Leo would know the truth. I knew that he would support me and protect me. Just like my dad did. Tears welled up in my eyes again. As soon as Leo returned, I immediately pulled him to the TV in anticipation. I turned on the recording. Mike was already on the screen. I froze, and suddenly, black screen. I was stunned. "Leo, it looks like the camera's turned off. I'm not lying to you." But Leo only said sadly that he was very disappointed. How could I say these lies about his best friends? Lowering his eyes, he added that he had a very different opinion of me. I had a terrible sinking feeling. The person closest to me thought I was a liar. The next morning, the twins made me wash all their shoes, and when Toby saw a spot on his sneaker, he yelled that if it wasn't for the money, they would have thrown me out for sure. Suddenly, I heard someone moving in the corridor. I was desperate. In tears, I wandered into the bathroom to wash his sneakers. Why do I need all this? Even Leo doesn't believe me. Suddenly, Leo came into the bathroom. It turned out that he had returned for the wallet and it heard everything. Leo started to apologize for not believing me right away, and then he added that now he would never let me offend, but we needed proof. Then the brothers would be deprived of their guardianship rights. "Leo, I won't let you down this time. All I wanted was to win back his trust." Surprisingly, I felt more than just gratitude for him. Leo helped set up the camera on the TV, and we waited for the brothers. As soon as they entered, I blurted out, "Why did you take custody of me if you wanted a slave?" Toby just grinned at me. I could not prove anything. "Yes, of course. Let's see." We checked. Everything was recorded this time. In the morning, Leo said that the four of us were going to the amusement park in honor of my last birthday and winked at me. The guys jumped in the back of the car, and Mike immediately started making stupid jokes about me. But Leo snapped at him to apologize immediately. The boys yelled in disgust. At that moment, we were approaching the police station. Toby's twin immediately rushed to the car door handle, but I managed to block it. The police were already approaching us, and while the surprised brothers were being handcuffed, Leo handed the sheriff a flash drive with the video. As we watched the twins go, Leo turned to me, looked me in the eye, and gave me a gentle hug. Then he added that we could finally live together. I felt my cheeks turn red. I was the happiest person on the planet that night. The twins were deprived of their rights to my custody, and they were obligated to pay the money spent. Leo and I were so happy about it. I started a new life. But alas, the joy was not long. A few days later, we got a call from custody saying that due to a legal accident, Leo could no longer be my guardian. Tomorrow I would be picked up by a new guardian from another city. This was the end. All night, I could not find a place. After all, I was losing a dear person again. Tears were choking me, but I suddenly realized that I just had to thank Leo for everything. I got up early and immediately rushed to the music store. I was supposed to meet Leo for the last time in an hour. And when I saw him, I couldn't help but cry. He seemed broken too. With trembling hands, I handed Leo the guitar he'd been craving. Leo was taken aback and tried to refuse the gift, but I tried to smile through my tears and said that he was the dearest person in my life, and I wanted him to remember me. Leo was calm and silently smiled. What? Leo, don't you care? Suddenly, someone touched me on the shoulder. I almost jumped in surprise. A young man was standing nearby. He said he was my new guardian and nodded to Leo. What does it mean? Leo gently wiped away my tears and told me I shouldn't have worried so much. It turned out that my new guardian was an acquaintance of his. Having learned that he could be deprived of guardianship, had a deal with him that no one else would take me away. It turned out that he would only be my guardian according to documents, and I would live with Leo, but not officially. I burst into tears of happiness. Leo hugged me and whispered softly that first I had to pretend that my guardian was taking me away, so that the guardianship service would not suspect anything, and in the evening he would pick me up. I replied jokingly, "Alright, Daddy, goodbye, I love you." Did you like the video? Then subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.